Welcome to Truth Injector World News Service. Today we are going to play a short clip of an MSNBC News interview featuring the distinguished Zbigniew Brzezinski. Note that his lovely and probative daughter, Mika, commences this interview segment.
You were in Russia and Germany, Dad. Tell us about it.
Well, it was nothing, extraordinary, but it was very interesting. In Russia, I participated in a meeting with President Medvedev, and he spoke, and President Gül of Turkey was there, and he spoke, and I had a chance to speak and deliver a speech. And my sense in Russia was that the country is in a state of unease, uncertainty, unclear about its near political future, and uncertain about its larger global prospects. So it was a rather interesting opportunity to compare views and also to make some policy recommendations. And in Germany, of course, the preoccupation was the European Union. But it was rather interesting that in the high-level meetings in Germany, in which the German president participated, a top-level Chinese delegation also participated and spoke about these problems, and in a sense seemed to indicate Chinese interest in helping the Europeans somehow or other cope with their problems. The Russians were present there too. There were a couple of Americans, I was one of them. And basically, there's a sense of uneasiness in Europe also about America, not only our economics, but the absence of any American foreign policy for the Middle East. The sense in Europe is that our position in the Middle East is disintegrating between our eyes. And I happen to share that view. And that we're doing very little about it. And we have an immediate challenge coming up in the UN, which could end up very tragically for everyone concerned, for us, for the Middle East, specifically for the Palestinians, in the longer run for the Israelis as well.
Well, Dr. Brzezinski, the timing, it'd be hard to imagine the timing being much worse with the UN vote coming up for U.S. policy on the Middle East to be disintegrating before our eyes. What has caused this crisis?
What has caused this crisis basically is the absence of progress towards peace in the Middle East. We talk peace, but we don't promote peace. And we take a back seat and we let the developments move forward on their own without the United States either asserting its influence or mobilizing the support of others to assert a common global interest in solving that problem. In the meantime, the Arab governments that we have traditionally dealt with are beginning to fold up. A new era is upon us in the Middle East, but it's not, in my view, an era of democracy. It's an era of populism. And popular views tend to be harder, tougher, less compromising. So we've missed the boat here. And now if we take a stand against Palestinian independence in the UN, it's not only going to be a serious strategic error, but it's going to be a tragic historical error.
Dr. Brzezinski.
Because we voted rightly for Israeli independence in 1948, and we should be on record as supporting some formula for Palestinian independence, and it'll be viewed by most as the U.S. rejecting the prospect of that independence.
Dr. Brzezinski, certainly you've heard, Washington's heard the old saying, all politics is local. On Long Island this Tuesday, Democrats lost a special election that many are fretting may cause bigger problems for Democrats over the next 2 years because of the president's supposed split with Israel and Jewish voters. The front page of the New York Times today, the headline is "Seeing a Ripple in Jewish Vote. Politics toward Israel may hurt Democrats." But you have the administration talking about steps that they're going to make in the coming weeks, months, to underline and emphasize actually a movement closer to Israel. Do you think the timing of this should be cause for concern for those who want to see us move forward with Middle East peace?
I'm not even sure whether the timing is the cause of concern. What I think is cause of concern is the absence of any strategic sense of direction in the region. What we are doing essentially is contributing to a situation in which both the United States and Israel are going to be totally isolated in the Middle East. And in the longer run, if the United States is pushed out of the Middle East, Israel is not going to survive. So It's a tragic situation in which blind people looking at today and mostly at yesterday are leading and determining what is to be done. Look, some years ago, America entered the Middle East because the people there wanted us instead of the French and British imperialists. We had Iran on our side, we had Saudi Arabia on our side, we had Egypt on our side, we had Turkey on our side, and we were close to Israel. Look where we're today. We're practically isolated, and Israel is isolating itself increasingly. This is a self-destructive policy, and you can translate it into some sort of a domestic calculus, but that's a short-run calculation.
All right, Doctor, in this world, in that part of the world that you just spoke of, you have this incredibly volatile situation with, as you indicated, Arab governments toppling before our eyes, and you have an island of somewhat stability in Israel. So the question that would be posed today to you, because you are uniquely qualified to answer it, is Bibi Netanyahu, today, right now, is he more of an ally or an antagonist to the process of peace?
I think he's self-destructive. I think he's damaging Israel's long-range prospects. You describe it as an island of stability. Look, it's an island of stability in which 6 million people are ruling 5 million other people. That's not stable. And in a region which is self-asserting, which is becoming indeed populist, it's a prescription for an explosion, tremendous violence and repression. Yes, in the short run, Israel is the strongest of the two, the Israelis and the Palestinians, or the Israelis and the Arabs. But in the long run, it's not a formula for survival. It's a formula for isolation, perpetual conflict, eventual fading of the security of Israel and of its prospects of survival. So the stakes are enormous, and to sort of measure that in terms of short-range political goals, it seems to me to be an evasion of historical responsibility, and it is essentially an abandonment of American strategic interests.
Really?
Mika, one of the things I love about having your dad on,
yes,
spin the globe, pick a country, ask him about it, and he'll give you a dissertation.
I got a question
so I'm
for right here at home, but you go first.
I'm going to jump to Pakistan, if I could, Dr. Brzezinski, quickly, because we had Dexter Filkins, the great war correspondent, on yesterday, who's just back from Pakistan, and he said in the 20 years since he's been going there and reporting, it's never been as bad or more chaotic, he said, than it is right now. Do you share that view of Pakistan? And if so, what does that mean for the United States?
What it means for the United States is that we ought to think very seriously about seeking a regional solution for Pakistan in the very near future. Not merely prevailing against the Taliban or alternatively negotiating with it in parts, but launching a diplomatic initiative which engages all of Afghanistan's neighbors, starting with Pakistan, but also the other stands, so-called, and Iran, and India, and China, and make it clear to them in the process, we're willing to be part of the solution, but we're not going to be there eternally solving the problem for the region. And if they're not prepared to participate with us in finding a solution for Afghanistan, we're going to pack up and leave. It's going to be a disaster for Afghanistan, but it will blow up Pakistan. It will engage the Indians in possible conflict. It will throw the ball to the Chinese, who will then be stuck with an explosive situation regarding their ally, Pakistan, and it will be their problem.
Wow. Okay. I want to
really hopeful discussion.
I know. Let's lift things up, Dad, a little bit.
Now let's turn the corner and make things a little more cheerful. You want to talk about poverty in America, so let's go. The great strides that we've made over the past 25 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know, because you landed 2 days ago. You might have seen the latest poverty study from the Census Bureau. Bottom line is the poverty, people living below the poverty line are growing in numbers. You're writing a book about sort of prescriptions for the future, and do you look at what's happening in our society in terms of the divide?
Well, what I worry about is partially what you have just talked about, Mika, but I also worry even more about the other side of that, which is the 1% of the richest who have the benefits of tax loopholes and of preferential arrangements, and who whoop it up without any responsibility, social responsibility for our lives here in America. I think Warren Buffett wrote a historic piece which ought to be the guide for Congress, We cannot have a society in which 1% owns so much, and in which the remnants of what used to be the poor narrow society, now increased by refugees from a failing lower middle class, are deprived. This is a prescription for social conflict in addition to economic paralysis.
Okay, how do you fix that at this point? And is anyone in Washington even coming close to attempting to?
Well, the only way to fix it is to address it over and over and over again at the highest level with some persuasion and, to the extent possible, with some initiatives that have social appeal. But I'm afraid we have gotten ourselves into a situation in which our gridlock is going to perpetuate this issue until it really becomes painful for our society. So we may be in for a tough period of time in our prospects. But I still nurture the conviction that the residual assets of America are there, that this society has the capacity for self-renewal and self-reflection, but we're going right now through a kind of a lunatic phase in our politics. Look at the comments and speeches and perspectives shared with us by putative Republican presidential candidates. It's literally frightening. These people are living in some sort of never land of illusions, slogans, passions, convictions, very unrelated to reality.
You know, Doctor.
Speaking of unrelated to reality, Mike Barnacle has a question
Very
for
disconnected.
you. Very disconnected, indeed.
You know, your outline of what I still refer to as your 1% doctrine, 1% of the population in this country owning so much while the rest of us own so very little, that is a prescription globally for unrest in any society, in any culture. Eventually, people look out the window and see the top of the hill where everybody has everything, and they get their pitchfork and decide to try and take the hill, whether it's here or Africa or the Middle East. Is it not?
Absolutely. And we have been very lucky because we have been a democratic society in which progress sort of reinforced our democratic institutions because everyone felt they have a chance of rising. Today, social advancement from the lower classes upwards is faster in Europe than in America. And not to mention other societies, like, for example, the Chinese, who are lifting themselves by the bootstraps. I mean, we have right now a stagnant, social, highly differentiated society in which the richer are getting richer, are absolutely socially indifferent. They evade taxes right and left, and we're kind of indifferent to it. That's a prescription exactly for what you described.
All right.
Okay, Dr. Zbigniew Brzezinski, thank you. I couldn't agree with you more about actually the Republican slogans, but I also think that it takes two to tango.
Oh, absolutely, and I think, it's sort of a pity, but we have this very, very dramatically attractive leadership, but which doesn't really go far beyond speeches, and that's part of the problem, and it has been so for the last months or a couple of years, I'm sorry to say.
Well, Dad, thank you very much. Come back soon. People have been asking about you, and I told them you were
Always
traveling.
Do.
Thank you.
Some will hate me for what I was saying today.
No, I don't think
You'll fit right in here.
I think you're good.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks,
we
Dad.
greatly appreciate it.